we start with finding emotional and energetic safety, because when you can have emotional and energetic safety, then you have the bandwidth to do other things. When you're not constantly in this, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, anxiety, worry, dread, self-doubt, inner
Fear, fear,
judgment,
fear, 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 fear.
waiting for the other shoe to drop, even though you should be happy, right? All of that stuff.
Right.
So that's the very first thing we address. And we walk people through that process: fear, anxiety, worry, dread, self-doubt, inner and outer judgment, and then learning to build a foundation of self-support and courage.
Hi, I'm Biz Cush, a life coach and therapist, and your host here on the Awaken Your Wise Woman podcast. We're talking to women all over the world who found their way back to themselves, to their inner knowing, to their intuition, to their wisest self. We're exploring how to feel alive, authentic, engaged, and fully present in your life. Let's awaken your wise woman. Hello, I am Biz Cush, and this is the Awaken Your Wise Woman podcast. Thanks for being here. Thanks for tuning in. I'm just so excited that the podcast is back. I truly enjoy interviewing amazing women, wise women. It brings me so much just fulfillment, connection. I just find that learning about all the different ways of healing, but also learning about other women's journeys through healing is just fascinating. And I hope you find that it's fascinating too. Today, we're talking to Kelle Sparta, but before we get to that, I just want to say, if you are interested in keeping up with the podcast, knowing when I'm offering free coaching sessions, because I only do that through my newsletter. Sometimes I promote them on the podcast, but mostly through my newsletter. If you want to know more about me, about what I'm reading, some coaching tips, mindfulness tips, it's all in my newsletter that comes twice a month. You can sign up at elizabethcushcoaching.com/sign up. And I hope you do. I hope you sign up. I hope you enjoy the newsletter. I hope that you will, if you do get it, that you will let me know what your thoughts are, because I love to hear from the listeners. I love to hear from newsletter subscribers. So give me a shout out. Comment, share it, whatever feels right to you. So Kelle Sparta, such an interesting woman, and I'm super excited to share this conversation. We talk about her journey to shamanism, which included a 14,000-mile road trip, about learning to surrender and why that's important, how to be a truly integrated human being, and why taking the slow path on your journey to healing is so, so important. So I hope you will have some takeaways of your own that resonate with you. Here's some more info about Kelle. Today, my guest is Kelle Sparta. She is a transformational shaman working with high-performance people to unlock hidden aspects of their potential. She teaches motivated people to master their energy to create next level results. Had a really great conversation with Kelle, and I'm super excited to share it with you. So let's get started. Hi, Kelle, and welcome to the Awaken Your Wise Woman podcast.
Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
I'm so excited to talk to you. I always love talking to other podcasters. One, it's a fun connection. But two, I don't know, we're in especially female podcasters. I mean, I know the market is growing for that, but there really aren't a ton of us out there. And it's nice to, when I first started, there were hardly any females in the podcasting world.
Tell me about it. I actually had my first podcast in 2005 when nobody had ever heard of the podcast. My web developer said, "You have to have a podcast." And I was like, "What's a podcast?" And I ended up being one of the first podcasters in Boston. And so now I know all of the early podcasters. I know CC Chapman and Chris Penn and Chris Rogan and John Wall. All of the
Oh,
big guys in podcasting in the very beginning are people that I hung out with at the time. And so, and then I took a
wow.
break because,
Yeah.
podcasting is a lot of work. And then I started up again about 4 years ago. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. It's a lot of work, a lot of time, money. If you,
Yep.
choose to get other people to help you with it,
Yep.
it's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah, I did the math the other day. It's about $2,000 a year to just produce, and I do it on the cheap. So and that's still
Yeah.
about 2
Yeah.
grand. It's expensive. Yeah.
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 Yeah. I mean, if I
That doesn't
factored
include the
in,
equipment or anything. Yeah.
no. If I factored in what I would get paid if somebody paid me to do,
Right.
by the hour, like,
Right.
yeah, no, but I love it. And
Yep.
that's why I do it. And it's so great to have you here. So, and you're calling in all the way from Panama, right?
Panama. Yes, from Boquete, Panama.
Wow.
Halfway up a mountain.
Wow.
Halfway up a volcano, technically.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
exciting. I bet
Yeah.
it's beautiful. I don't know that, but I
Stunningly
assume.
gorgeous. It is
Yeah.
fantastic. It's raining right now. It's the rainy season. It rains every day,
Wow.
which
Wow.
is good because that means that the construction across the street from my house has stopped.
There you go.
I schedule my podcast in the afternoon because it rains in the afternoon and it stops the construction.
Very smart.
The
Very
little
smart. I
things that
bet
you
that could.
gotta figure out as you live in another country, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another country, another, yeah. Just another environment for
Yeah.
sure.
I'll be out of luck in the dry season. But
Maybe they'll take a break at lunch or something.
hopefully they'll be working on the inside by then.
There you go. There you go. So, if you could tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and what inspires you in life.
Well, so I am a transformational shaman. My mother raised me in the New Age movement from the time I was about 4 or 5 years old. So, if you're familiar with Landmark, the earlier version of Landmark was Est, the not kinder, gentler version. And she brought that home
Okay.
when I was like 6 years old and taught that to me. And then we didn't watch TV. We sat around and listened to self help tapes and self hypnosis tapes and you name it, we listened to it. And so I was raised on Seth and Ram Dass and Abraham Hicks and JC Knight and all of the people of the day. And it was the 70s and into the 80s. And then we did psychic development classes and palmistry and tarot and whatever. So I was doing self
Wow.
hypnosis by the time I was 10. I was reading tarot by the time I was 12. It was quite an upbringing. And then in my late 20s, I ended up dumping my life. So I always said I wanted to be Auntie Mame without the alcohol. And so I don't know if you're familiar with who Auntie Mame is, but she's a real person. Her name was Mame Dennis in the 20s. And,
Okay.
well, obviously longer than the 20s, but the movie is set in the 20s. The 1965 Rosalind Russell film is the best way to learn. And she just had this joy for life. And she did all the outrageous things and traveled the world and hung out with artists and musicians and great thinkers and philosophers. And I was like, oh, that's what I want to do. But of course, they drank incessantly. And I was like, nah, I'm not a big drinker, but I want to be Auntie Mame without the alcohol. And so
Hmm.
instead, I ended up doing the American Dream checklist. And I started the perfect business. I had the trophy husband. I had the big house and 2 cars and the dog. Thank God I didn't have the children. But
Mm.
I had everything. I was a pillar of my community. I was volunteering for Habitat for Humanity. And I had it all. From the big outside view, everybody would have thought I was super successful. And I hated my life. And
Wow.
so I had been in a cold war with my husband for years. I had been burned out on my job for years. I was hiding in the affiliate, in the Habitat for Humanity affiliate to avoid my life. I was doing all, and I
Mm.
was just like, and I wasn't really, it was tough, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I dumped my life. I literally just like razed it all to the ground, just cut it all down and started over. I sold my business. I sold my house. I divorced my husband. I made him take the dog. I moved out of state and I lived with a bunch of people I met at the Renaissance Fair. And my
Oh my
business
gosh.
partner said that I'd run off and join the circus. And he really wasn't quite wrong.
Wow.
But as it
Wow.
turns out, they were all shamans. And I had never
Mm,
heard of shamanism nor paganism before I
okay.
had met these people. Well, no, I had heard about paganism in college, and I sort of like, yeah, whatever, and wandered
Mhm.
off. But I definitely never heard of shamanism up until then. And I was the fun story. I went into the basement of this Victorian house, which of course has a single pull string in the center of the room with to turn the light switch on, right? Pull the light bulb, right?
Uh-huh.
It was the middle of the night, pitch black, and I walked into the room. I don't even remember what I was trying to get, but I walked into the room and I was covered in spider webs. And I was like, whatever it is, I don't need it this bad. I'll get it in the morning. Right. And I turned around and went back upstairs. I came back down in the morning. There were no spider webs anywhere in the basement. And I realized when I came upstairs, there had not been spider webs anywhere on me. And I
Oh.
talked to my roommate, and he said, who was a shaman, and he said, yeah, grandmother spider's calling you, and you really should pay attention to that before she does to you what she did to me, which was she hatched an entire nest of spiders over his bed, and they came down and snacked on him. Yeah. He
Oh.
said, please pay attention now. If she's giving you a nice calling. I was like, okay, I have no idea what that means. What does that mean?
Right. Okay, what do
And
I do with that?
right,
Right.
exactly. And he's like, well, you need to form a relationship with her and talk to her because she's calling you to shamanism. And I was like, what's shamanism? I don't know what that is. And he's like, well,
Mm.
as he described it to me, which is very different than the traditional shamanism, he described it to me as, it's the process of evolving yourself and participating in helping others evolve themselves. And
Mm.
shortly thereafter, I would be put out on walkabout because the universe just lined up to make that happen. And I didn't know I was on walkabout. But walkabout means it's an Aboriginal term. It means to walk into the world until you find yourself, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say my mother took me to watch the movie
There
Walkabout
you
when
go.
I was a kid. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Okay.
So I did it in the US because,
Yeah.
that's my home, or it was at the time. I live here now.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I did it in my car because that was how we do things in the US. And I ended up being on the road for a year, living
Wow.
on $350 a month of unemployment insurance and the kindness of strangers.
Mm.
And I traveled 14,000 miles in that journey. And
Wow.
the song that opens and closes my podcast now is the song I wrote while I was on walkabout about that journey.
Oh my gosh.
And so my boyfriend at the time was a recording studio guy, and I came back and I'm like, I wrote this. Can we put music to it? He said, well, okay, sing it for me. I was like, no, I asked you to put music to it. He's like, yeah, but sing it to me. He's like, you know the song. And I'm like, but I don't know the song. He's like, just sing it. And in one take, that is what came out.
Oh my
Was just
goodness.
the drum beat and what I sang, and then we overlaid the harmonies later, which was
Mm.
the melody is what I wanted other people to know about my journey. And the harmonies that I laid in later were all of the fears and all of the doubts and all of the concerns that were sort of nagging in the back of my head as I was going through the journey, right?
Wow. Wow.
It's a cool thing. Yeah, so I gave away everything I owned and I left in my car with nothing but my clothes and my tarot cards and some MREs, some meals ready to eat that a friend of mine's husband had shoved underneath the seat.
Oh my
Because he's like, I
goodness.
can't face the fact that you might not eat. He was so worried about
Wow.
me. I never had to touch him,
Oh,
thank God. But
wow. Wow.
yeah.
Wow. I mean, it's like so to me feels so brave and so scary at the same time.
It's so funny because we literally are going through this right now because we moved to Panama a month ago.
Wow.
And I am literally getting the same messages from other people that I got when I was on the walkabout, which is, oh my God, you're so brave. Oh my God, I could never do that, blah, 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 blah. But I felt so called. I felt
Mm.
so held by spirit. It was just so obvious that this is what I was supposed to do.
Mhm.
but it didn't feel that brave at the time. And I
Mm.
kept looking at it going, am I brave? I don't know that I'm brave. I feel very held. I feel very safe. Isn't bravery like doing something in the face of fear and you have to feel the fear? And I look back on it later and, there were doubts and there were things in the moment, but mostly I really wasn't that worried.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure
Yeah.
why, because I really probably should have been. But I
The
wasn't.
innocence of youth or
Yeah.
something. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I wasn't that young. I was in my 30s.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but it sounds like that feels young to me right now, but it sounds like there was a sense of safety in it, even doing something that was scary, but there was this sense of purpose and that this is what needed to happen.
Yeah. I mean, have you ever read the book, The Celestine Prophecy?
Mm-mm.
It's by James Redfield. It's a remarkable book. And he says it's fiction. He didn't originally, but now he does.
Mm.
But it is very true. It is the idea that you go out and you just follow where the universe takes you and you end up in the most magical places, right?
Mm.
And you just
Yeah.
end up with the right people doing the right things in the right moment and getting exactly what you need.
Yeah.
And that's how it worked. And I would say that moving to Panama was a lot more work because I owned a lot more stuff. We had to sell a house, an entire house full of stuff, and a car and everything else. And
Yeah.
it wasn't fearful even, it was just, it's like, okay, it's going to be different. Okay. Those are the things we need to know. It was a lot of work, but I don't, again, not afraid. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it seems like you just sort of surrendered to what would happen next
Yes.
in many ways. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
exactly the word. It is when you go on walkabout, it is about learning how to surrender. It is about learning to trust the universe to take you where you need to go and stop trying to control every freaking little thing in your life. Yeah.
So hard for us to do here in the United States and probably other cultures
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
But
But us in
but
particular,
yes.
yeah, because we're like,
Yeah.
gotta get it done yesterday, yeah.
And if I just push hard enough, I can control it all, right?
Yes. I got news. No, not so much.
No, no, definitely not.
Uh,
And so, if you were to describe what a shaman is, how would you describe who you are as a shaman, I guess?
so the first thing I'm going to say is that if you ask 100 shamans what a shaman is, they're going to give you 100 different answers because it's all based on what the particular person does. And for me, I do what I refer to as transformational shamanism, which is what my friend described to me in the beginning, which is the conscious evolution of self and others, and
Okay.
the facilitation of that. And so
Mm.
I've spent the last, so on the walkabout, I wrote the first 45 pages of the book that I was writing about my, everybody asked me the same questions at every stop, right? And so I just started writing it down. And
Hmm.
it was all the things that I knew up till then. And then I've just kept writing it as I've done work. And so every time I did something that worked for my own evolution, I wrote it down.
Hmm.
The thing about personal work and shadow work and personal evolution is that 95% of the work you do is trying to figure out what work to do. And the other
Yeah.
5% is actually doing it. Right. And
Yeah.
so I took this and I put it all into a book, which I would give away to people periodically as I would go through life. And I'd come back 3 months, 6 months, 2 years, 5 years later and say, hey, did you ever finish the book? And they're like, oh, no, I'm actively thinking about chapter X. And it would be a different chapter every time. And I'd be like,
Hmm.
well, how long have you been thinking about that? And they're like, 3 months, 2 years, and I'm like, you're stuck. And they're like, like, yeah, you're stuck. You shouldn't still be there at this point unless you were having some resistance and something going on and whatever. And they're like, oh, and I was like, okay, I can't publish this as a book because nobody finishes
Oh.
it. And so
Huh.
I turned it into a program, and that program is now what I run. And over the last 5 years that we've been running it, people have had amazing transformations because it's in 2.5 years, you get 25 years worth of personal growth work, which
Wow.
Sounds like a lot, and it is. Don't get me wrong. But
Mm.
remember, 95% of the work is finding what you need to do. And so
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
95% of the time it takes, right? So
Mm.
really,
So sort of
all
trying
you're doing
different
is taking
things.
out
Did
the
this
empty
work?
space,
Does it?
right?
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
taking out all the trial and error empty space, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
And so, can you talk to us a little bit about how you work with a person over that course of time? Like, how is it that you're noticing where they're stuck? Like, how is it that you get to the meat of what work needs to be done?
So there's a pathway. And so I want to start with outlining the pathway, right? So the pathway is, and this is where most people get hung up. They try to skip straight to the shadow work.
Mm.
And the problem is that if you have a huge amount of shadow work to be done, you also have issues around your identity and you also have issues around feeling safe. And if you don't address those issues first, you will re traumatize yourself at worst or get nothing done at best in your shadow work, right?
Okay.
And so we start with finding emotional and energetic safety because when you can have emotional and energetic safety, then you have the bandwidth to do other things when you're not constantly in this, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, anxiety, worry, dread, self doubt, inner
Fear, fear,
judgment,
fear, 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 fear.
waiting for the other shoe to drop, even though you should be happy, right? All of that stuff.
Right.
So that's the very first thing we address. And we walk people through that process: fear, anxiety, worry, dread, self doubt, inner and outer judgment, and then learning to build a foundation of self support and courage. That's what we do in the
Mm.
first program.
Okay.
And then in the second one, we're working on solidifying your identity because when you come up in an environment where you feel unsafe, you become a reflection of or the desired outcome of someone else's intention.
Hmm.
You are who they want you to be in order to make them happy or keep them from being upset, right? Either
Yeah.
one. In most cases, you can't make them happy, so it's keep them from being upset, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so we work on reestablishing a sense of identity for yourself, right? So it's about claiming your space, your ability to exist and to hold space and take up space in your own life. Setting your boundaries, saying, no, that's not your space, that's my space, and this is my choice, and you don't get to make it for me, right? Owning
Yep.
your power and being willing to both wield your power in your own life and not have to wield it in other people's lives, which is, not taking responsibility for everyone else, right?
Wow. Wow.
Internalizing your sense of value and so
Mm.
that you're not constantly subject to other people's validation. So you know that you are worthy and deserving in your own right. And
Mm.
then learning to love yourself. Okay. And those are the 5 steps of creating and solidifying your own identity and your own energetic container. Because what we're doing is we're actually teaching you on 2 levels. We're doing the mental, emotional, but we're also doing the energetic level. So in the beginning, you're learning how to manage your energy field, how to protect yourself, how to protect your home, how to clear your energy field, all of those things. And then
Hmm.
in the second part, you're learning how to do the things that are around setting your own intentions for your own life and holding space for yourself and creating your own reality and manifesting and things like that, right? So it's an
Yeah.
integrated part and parcel because this is one of the big problems. So before I go there, the third one is doing the shadow work, right? And so
Okay.
we work on digging out the buttons and triggers that send you flying, right? Because you are now a
Hmm.
solid container where you can hold enough space for yourself that you can actually do this work.
Yeah. Yeah.
But one of the biggest problems in this industry is that one, there's no curriculum. You got to try to like do 14 classes, 2-hour classes, watch 100 videos, read 12 books, binge 15 podcasts, and hope that you get something useful out of it. And that's
Yeah.
my biggest frustration. And
Hmm.
you don't know if any of it's actually going to work for you because you're not even really clear what your problem is in the first place most of the time, right?
Yeah.
You're coming in going, I'm in pain, and I did therapy for a while and it worked, and then it stopped working, and the therapist seemed to want me to go somewhere, but I had no idea where that was, and they wouldn't tell me where to go, and I got tired of guessing and getting it wrong. And so I said, screw it.
Mm.
I wandered out and now I'm here. That's most of my
Yeah.
clients, right?
Yeah.
Like,
No, I hear you. I do. Yeah.
and so,
Yeah.
between that and the other problem is that we have siloed the information. So you can go into the wellness silo and learn about, Tai Chi and Qigong and meditation and yoga and acupuncture and all of that. Or you can go into the energy silo and learn about energy healing, maybe a little manifestation and
Hmm.
metaphysics. Or you can go into the magic silo and learn about spells and intentions and magic ritual and things like that. Or you can go over here into this other silo with personal growth and self-help and blah, blah, blah. The problem is they don't talk to each other. And
Mm.
true transformation happens when you combine the energy world with the personal growth world and the
Right.
wellness piece, right? And you can do internal transformation with just the energy world and the personal growth work, right?
Right.
If you want to truly be an integrated being, you have to add in the wellness piece on top of it, right? So
Yeah.
if you do
Yeah.
one or two, you're not getting the whole picture, right?
Mm.
And
Hmm.
that's the challenge, is that we've siloed the information and we're using such different terminologies that people
Yeah.
can't even understand that they're talking about the same things.
How
Like,
to integrate it into
yeah,
into a whole.
exactly. My husband comes out of the 12-step process. And
Yep.
when I met him, he and I were talking, and I was saying something to him, and he was saying, well, blah, 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 talking from his perspective. And it took us an hour to realize we were saying the same thing, just in very different language, right?
Well, interesting listening to you talk about your program and how you work with your clients. I'm grateful that so much has evolved in the therapy world around healing trauma, but it is about, right? You resource yourself and then you learn to how to take care of yourself and set those boundaries. And then you work on the wounds,
Right.
then you work on the trauma. And so that's a whole nother silo, right?
It's a whole nother piece. Yeah. And then
Yeah.
I've got another layer of the work that I do where I work with people who are further along in their process, people who are out there teaching others. And I work with
Mm,
them on much more advanced skills. So whether it's
yeah.
teaching them energetic skills and how to manage that, or how to work at the energy of the group, or, it's a combination of business coaching and energy, personal shamanism, blah, 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 right? It's the whole shebang, right?
Yes.
And,
Yes.
that's at a much higher level because they're further along in their process, right?
Mm,
Yeah, and
yeah.
that's
Well, it
that's a
makes
more
sense. Right.
customized process too, rather than a set program, because it's
Yeah.
designed around their needs. Yeah,
Right. Which makes sense.
yeah,
It sounds like a lot of your work is that, though. Like,
that's
what does this individual need to
yeah,
get them from where they are now to being a more fully, what do you call it? Actualized human
actualized,
being?
yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
actualized, activated, empowered, all of the
All
above.
those things.
Authentic self,
Oh,
yes. On
yeah.
purpose, yes. Everything.
Yes.
I tell people
Yes.
will come to me and they say, I want to find my purpose. I'm like, your purpose is the fullest expression of your authentic self. Find your authentic self and you'll be on purpose all the time.
Mm, that's beautiful. I mean, it is, right? Like, if we can figure out how to just really tap into just that most grounded, safest self, yeah, that we can then live with purpose because it just all makes sense then, right? I don't
Right.
know. I mean, life. I mean, like where you want to put your energy and how you live in the world.
Well, it's you're no longer doing anything for anyone but yourself.
Well, and you know what's so interesting about that? Because I feel that in my heart. And yet there are people who will be like, and then that's just so selfish. That's selfish. You're just doing it because that's what you want to do. And yet really, it's not about
No.
selfishness. It's about really understanding your own needs, right?
Well, it's so to put this in a terminology that somebody could understand who's saying that, what you have to understand is that you need to be selfish, because if you are not selfish from your definition of selfish, not mine, then what you're doing is you're making sure that you fill yourself up first so that you're giving from your overflow rather than from your emptiness.
Yes.
And then the people you're giving to
yes.
feel the gratitude that you have for being able to give because you've got so much to give, rather than the resentment of you having to give because they need something and then they feel like a burden. Right? So you're giving them the gift of feeling like they are a gift rather than a burden. And you can only do that by taking care of yourself first.
Yes. So we're going to recoin the word selfish as a good thing.
There's a book called Sacred Self-Centeredness by Deborah Roth. And she outlines it quite well in her book. She's a friend of mine in New York. So
nice. I like that, sacred self-centeredness, because it just feels beautiful.
Yeah.
Versus doing it because I just want to get what I want. I want to fill myself up so that I have enough to give to you.
Yes. Yeah.
And more. Yeah. And so a lot of what you've talked about is part of it is the energy work and working with our energy to help us feel more aligned and in balance. How do you understand for yourself that someone else's energy may not be aligned or may not be in a place where they can do the work that they need to do?
Okay. So I do a process called an energy scan. And basically, I can go into somebody's energy field and with their permission, obviously, and read their aura that tells me what's going on with them. And then I can look at each of their chakras. And I'm looking specifically for the mental emotional blocks that are in place there. But an energy scan can be used to do any number of scan processes. You can look at energy fields, you can look at energy bodies, you can look at medical intuitive work. But the process I do is mental emotional, because that's my primary thing, and evolutionary work. And so I can lay that out. I did a series of over 3,000 of those scans in the course of 4 or 5 years. And I came out of that with the knowledge that there are like 38 blocks that are pretty common for people on a spiritual path. And I've got them all laid out, and I look for those, and then I ask, is there anything else now? Because it's just so obvious that that's what it is. And so the average person has between 8 and 15 of those at any given moment. And it's not a report card. It's not, oh, I only have 8, I'm doing better. No, it's the blocks are usually related to themes that you're dealing with in your life. And so there can be, 2, 3 themes that you're working on. And when you clear that level of your evolution, the new level of stuff comes up, and you'll have a lot of blocks again, right? Because you're working on the next level of the onion, right? And so it's more or less is irrelevant, because it's just where you are in your current level, right? But it helps to identify exactly what's going on. And when you start working with people at a deeper level, when they're further along in their journey, then you also have to start looking at things like, are there ancestral line issues? Are there past life issues? Are there soul contracts that have been made in this life or past lives that have been getting in the way? Are there outside influences? Has somebody placed a curse on them? Is somebody undermining them energetic? Are they connected to somebody who's in chaos and therefore it's bleeding over into their lives or whatever? What are all of there's so many different layers and, complexities that can be involved when you start getting into the deeper level work, where you're trying to be seen by more people. And inevitably there's the past life, I got killed for my gifts in a past life thing that most people who go out in public to do their work have to face, because almost always they've been killed in the past life for something. But
interesting.
Yeah. So all of that. So, and it just depends on the person as to what you're looking at and what you're dealing with. But this is why you need a deep and wide tool chest of all the stuff that you do, right?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, for sure. And so if you were to share one morsel,
Mhm.
in a bit of your personal wisdom with the listeners, what might that be?
Oh, just one. My brain is flying through lots of things. So I think what I would say is the more you fight the journey, the slower the journey is.
Yeah.
And the more you push the journey, the slower the journey is.
Mm,
Because pushing to get somewhere other than where you are, to get there faster, is its own form of resistance to being where you are. And
yeah.
where you are is the only place that growth can ever happen. Right here, right now, not the past, not the future, but right here in the present moment that just went away, just went away,
Just
just
passed,
went
just
away,
passed.
just went away, right? And right here in the spot that's the uncomfortable, right, is the only place where the work gets done. And so if you're trying to get there faster, or you're upset that you didn't get there faster, or you're avoiding and
Yes.
running away from it, or you're trying to get there, whatever, all of those things, if you're stuck in the past and blaming somebody else, if you're planning for the future and not here right now, you're like, I've got this big mission that I have to step into, I've got to get there yesterday. It's like you're in resistance, right? You're not
Yeah.
doing the work right now. You have to trust that the journey will make you into the person that you are destined to become. So stop being scared of it, right? Because
Yeah.
you don't have to be that person yet. By the time you get there, you will be that person. It's okay. Just be where you are,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That would be it was a very long piece of wisdom, but there you go.
No, and a beautiful piece of wisdom, because you can't get to where you need to be until you can be with yourself here in this moment,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And to me, it brings us back to that sense of surrendering. Like, I am willing to just be with what is right now.
Yeah. Yeah. 25 years ago, I looked ahead and I saw who I am today, and it scared the
Mm.
living crap out of me. I was just like, I can't be that person. I don't know how, if I stand up in front of people and I say something and I'm wrong, what am I going to do? I will be humiliated. Right. And what if I don't know the answer? And I was just like, I flipped myself out and I was like, I can't do this. And I was like, I finally just said, I can't think about it. Right. I was like, it's
Put that
making me
aside.
crazy. I can't think about it. But today I am that person and I'm like, yeah, it's all good. Right. It's no big
Yeah.
deal. And I can say stuff. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. It's not a heart attack. And my sense of value is not based on being right anymore, which it was back in the
Mm,
day. And I've evolved. It's very funny. I had an apprentice like 20 years ago now, and I touched base with him
mm.
like 10, 12 years ago. And I said, hey, how you doing? And he's like, oh, I'm great. And I said, he asked me a question. He said, never mind. I know what your answer is going to be. I said, really? What is my answer going to be? And he said, it's going to be this. I said, wow, that's really fascinating. Yes, my answer 10 years ago would have been that. But the me of 10 years ago would have absolutely said that. But the me of today is going to say this. And he went, oh. And but it was so cool because he was holding the energy of the me of 10 years ago. And he had lived with me in our space long enough.
Mm.
He had been in our fields long enough that he had really just incorporated that. And I was like, wow, that's
Oh,
really cool to get to see that glimpse of myself from that far ago.
yes, yes, yes. Sort of like a little time machine looking back
Right?
in time.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, if the listeners wanted to know more about how to find you, how to get in touch with you, Kelle, what do they need to do? How would they find you?
So the first thing is, you're a podcast listener, come and listen to my podcast. It's spiritsherpapodcast.com or Spirit Sherpa on any podcast player. And
Awesome.
Sherpa is SHERPA. And if you wanted to come check me out, you can come to my website at kellesparta.com. And Kelle is spelled Kelle.
Right.
Nothing else, just
Right.
Kelle. Yes, my mother was phonetically stupid. I can't help it. And Sparta, like the Greek city state, Sparta. And that's my website. You can join the mailing list and you get all kinds of interesting things. I send out something once a week that's got all kinds of good, cool content in it and stuff like that. And you can also download, which I would highly recommend, the Boundaries for Empaths program off my website. And that is a free download. Please, please, please download it. And please, please, please actually open it if you're going to download it, because I laugh because I ask people all the time. They're like, oh yeah, I downloaded it. I'm like, have you done it? They're like, oh, I haven't opened it yet. I'm like, I know, but you got to actually open it or else it doesn't work. But it will help you as an empath to set boundaries for yourself that will keep you from feeling overwhelmed by other people's strong emotions. It'll talk to you about the aspects of when you're in partnership, why it's so hard for you to separate from your partner and how you feel you lose yourself and things like that. Energetically, it's going to talk to you about how to shift the way you're holding your energy field so that you can then feel more solid and safe in your own space. It's called Boundaries for Empaths, and it's on the homepage of the website. It's directly below my picture. Just click on the link and you can get a free download.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, Kelle, I so appreciate your being on the podcast, and I will include links to all the things in the show notes on my podcast page. And it was really fun getting to know you and know more about your work as a transformational shaman.
Great. It was so great being here. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Thanks, Kelle.
Have a good one.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Kelle. She was really such an interesting person, and I had gotten to know who she was through a mutual friend, Jeremy Enns, who is a podcasting genius. I don't know. He helps people market their podcasts, and Kelle had commented on one of his articles in his newsletter, and I just enjoyed her comments so much that I had to reach out to her and get her on the podcast. So I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I hope you took away some wisdom from that conversation about shamanism and energy work. And I look forward to reconnecting with you next time on the podcast. If you want to know more about each episode, know more about what's happening in the coaching world, what I'm reading, my latest mindfulness tips, you can sign up for the newsletter at elizabethcush.com/sign up. I look forward to connecting with you here and there. Have a great week. Thanks for listening to the Awaken Your Wise Woman podcast. The information in this podcast is not a substitute for seeking help from a licensed mental health professional. Music by Andy Cush, sound editing by Laura Disler, and show notes by Kathy Cush. If you'd like more information about me, Biz Cush, and the resources shared today, go to awakenyourwisewoman.com.